Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Vishal and Company. Today, we're going to be talking about the China crash, including the Evergrande situation and the crypto ban. We are also going to be covering what happened in the Fed meeting. We have a ton to go over today, so I'm just going to pass it right off to Vishal.
All right. Thank you, Maddie. A lot of news today. That crypto stuff is pretty big, so we'll get to that in just a second. But I just want to start here with the markets and a lot of anticipation for that Federal Reserve meeting. You can see here on the S&P 500, if you're a part of our Discord channel or if you read my work on Market Moment on EQUITY.GURU's website, we highlighted this trend line that's been going on since mid-May pretty much of this year. We broke down, and after the Fed, we have now pulled back to essentially retest that zone. And you can see here with these wicks, that's where these sellers are piling in. So it's still a wait and see approach. We're going to see if markets basically can climb back above and invalidate basically a downtrend, or rather, and I guess we're going to find out next week, if we just find some more sellers here and they take the equity markets down further. And, if we do break 42.40 or 42.50, we'll talk about what that means going forward next week. That's what we're watching on the S&P 500. NASDAQ, pretty much the same thing. Looking a bit head and shoulderly to me, folks. But again, we're going to see what happens when candles close. The Dow as well is also at a zone where it is retesting a previous resistance. And it's just a battle between bears and bulls right now. And today's close is going to be quite telling in which direction the markets want to go. Quickly, I want to mention oil because we did talk about this last week. Broken flag, and take a look at that, folks. It looks like we are going to hit $76 a barrel in oil. And if that breaks, we're probably looking around $90. And this is coming when commodities are ripping. We're seeing natural gas rip. Tin apparently too is also ripping. Coffee futures are going up. So this whole idea of supply and demand and supply chain. So things to keep in mind while trading these markets. Before we get to Bitcoin, let's quickly talk about the Fed. And folks, what else can you say, really? It seems like they're just kicking the can down the road. And apparently now we are going to be hearing about some sort of tapering, maybe by November. And the two processes. So what Chair Powell said is, by the way, we expect our tapering to be done by mid-2022. The two criteria, before we talk about that criteria, we should mention that any tapering does not mean that interest rates are going to rise. So those are two completely different things. But the criteria for tapering is either, a drop in inflation, which the Fed believes they've done, because again, they think that this inflation is not due to their printing and supply chain issues, but it's this temporary, transitory thing. Whereas the second issue is employment. And that's the one where the Fed is saying, okay, we're going to watch and see what the employment data says. Powell himself came out saying, oh, by the way, I think the employment's great, so I'm ready to taper, but some members of the committee are still, a bit dubious about that. They want to see what the next number is going to be. And funnily enough, on Thursday, jobless claims came worse than expected. So maybe, the Fed's going to wait a bit, and we'll find out now, right? So it seems like they're spinning the same story, month after month, and they keep kicking the can down the road. And we just got to, see what happens there. But it's something that I think the market is, or investors are, like, come on, man, just taper already if you're going to taper. If not, then maybe market sell off, right? I don't know. It is getting a bit annoying, but two big topics actually were discussed in that meeting. And one was about, if you guys remember, like, apparently Fed Chair Powell had some municipal bonds, and as a chairman, he bought those municipal bonds. So basically he made some cash on that. And then there was Fed Chair Kaplan and another Fed chair that were playing the stock market. And now the Fed is investigating itself because those could be conflicts of interest. So there's talks about, Fed officials not being allowed to trade markets. And then the second issue was actually this. It was FedCoin, a launching of their digital currency. And apparently we're supposed to hear or see their white paper soon. And what Fed Chair Powell said is, hey, look, folks, because we are the reserve currency, we have to do this properly. So we're not going to be launching our Fed coin quickly. We're going to be launching it, properly, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, but we must get broad support from Congress and the government. So gonna sort of leave it there because, of course, the whole idea of digital currency versus, central bank digital currencies versus the private digital currencies, it is sort of escalating, and maybe I'll keep this headline up. China declaring all cryptocurrency transactions illegal, and I'll open the floor to discussion here.
Well, you got something to say, Joseph? Because I'll fucking jump in.
Well, is anyone particularly surprised? I mean, it's been trending this way for the better part of a couple months now. I mean, it's banned a component of it after component of it after component of it. I mean, you had to pretty much expect this to happen eventually. China has been doing some rather strange things lately, and not just on the cryptocurrency front, regarding shoring up both their economic and cultural assets, and they're trying to gear things towards a specific way. I mean, we got a whole bunch of companies which are, suffering because of it. We have like Riot Blockchains down by 7.4%, Bit Digital down by 7.8%, eBay International Holdings, who I've never heard of, is down by 9.4%. Future FinTech, which is an interesting case, down by 5.7%. I always wondered how they would, or what they would do and how they would fare, because, I mean, they're based here in Vancouver, but most of their holdings are in cryptocurrency-related fintech, dealing specifically with China. Diginex is down 8.8%, Mogo's down 6.8%. I mean, whether or not we're going to see sufficient rebounds is anybody's guess, at least within the next week. I mean, I've already had a look at Riot's chart. They're already up another 3%. So the effect on them is only 4%, whatever. Anyway, Galen, I know you want to go off on this, so have at it.
Well, basically, my theory is the Evergrande situation has grown completely out of control.
Right.
And basically what they're doing is they're trying to keep people in the currency. They don't want them taking their money out of the economy. They got to keep it in it because they're just about to take a fucking header. So I don't know if this is going to be a short-term thing. I think this might actually play out in the next year or so at least. We all experienced the 2009 crisis. It didn't go away in 30 days. It took a while to right itself. Now, the problem with the Chinese economy, or the Evergrande situation, is that not only is it going to impact the Chinese economy and digital assets, it's going to impact the global economy on the whole, because China has been a great consumer of commodities from across the planet for a good deal, or a good time now, for probably 10 or 20 years. And we have become dependent on it paying the bills on our goods. So the fact that that some people are considering this to be an isolated event, I don't think it's going to be. What it's going to do, I think, is it's going to shake out the cryptocurrency market, hopefully, finally, so it normalizes to what it actually is, which is essentially an highly speculative asset class. The currency aspect of it is just fucking ridiculous. There's no way that it can operate as such until they actually make it a currency, which, the Fed could try to do. And that's the thing. It's the function of the central bank to actually do so. In the hands of anyone else, it remains an asset, which you can't buy and sell. I mean, without considering it to be a speculative asset. It's not a currency. There we go.
TK, what do you think of this?
I think the whole situation should, like Galen said, play out over the next year or two. It's going to be a slow decay. A lot of people are worried more about the contagion.
Yeah.
What's actually for lack of a better term, in the situation we're all in right now, but contagion is the word the financial guys like to use. And yeah, these guys missed a payment on Thursday. 80 million dollars missed on Thursday, but they have 30 days grace period to actually make the payment, and they have time to renegotiate or whatever they're doing and restructure. But the big thing is, in the next year, they have to pay close to $7 billion in principal. So yeah, it's not going away anytime soon. But the big thing people are talking about is the real estate market in China. They're like, if you look at their balance sheet, Evergreen, they have $302 billion in current assets, so cash, inventory, and that kind of stuff. But when you dig deep into their inventory, 70 to 80% of it is real estate that is uh, marketed on fair value by accountants. So it's just some accountant's guess and management's guess of what the true value of this real estate is.
And it makes real estate makes about 30% of their GDP, China's GDP.
Yeah, China's GDP. and these guys, they market it at fair value, but now people are making adjustments to it to what the market value is right now. And if they're forced to sell on fire sale, that could, be detrimental to the real estate market. And most of the inventory is unfinished as well.
Yep.
To make matters worse. But the big thing is citizens made deposits for a lot of this real estate. And a lot of these people are going to be affected, not including outside investors and that kind of stuff. It's just people internally. And the funny thing about this whole situation is these guys got into EV.
Right.
And the EV market is about to tank there. There's a lot of ghost factories that there are over 300 companies in the EV sector operating in China, and only maybe 5 or 10 are legitimate. And I'm not saying legitimate legally. I'm saying legitimate as an actual companies. Many of them have just taken money and are waiting for their ticket in the sun and have yet to do that. So as I said, they've got empty factories, brand new facilities just sitting there. And that's why China is right now attempting to consolidate the industry, because it isn't. Most of it's vapor.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the economy is starting to realize that a lot of it is debt burdened. The interesting thing though, and shed light on this, is people had known for a while that these guys weren't credible. The CCP put out, through the People's Bank of China, put these regulations in place where certain real estate developers or financial institutions had a 4-tier prong of how much leverage they could have on their books.
Yeah.
And if the first time that this was initiated, which was probably a couple years ago, Evergrande failed on all on all the prongs. And they weren't allowed to increase their leverage from that point at a certain clip each year. They still increased it from $200 billion in liabilities to $300 billion, but that was the tapered down increase. So I think they're like, oh yeah, you know what? That was probably not enough. Let's try to control cash outflow now, just in case there's a flight for safety outside of the RMB. And I think it's terrible the way they do it. Ray Dalio says, obviously there's conspiracies about him and China. He's saying that the only thing with China is they are not vocal, or they don't elaborate their ideas for people. They just execute.
What are the conspiracies?
Oh man, people think he's in the back pocket of the CCP because you're not allowed to have foreign investors. You're not allowed to run a foreign shop in China, except for BlackRock and all these other weird little setups that are happening now. And he's one of the very first funds to have access to the Chinese market. So people are saying, oh, of course you're defending the CCP.
Yeah, he's always really pro-China and all his
yeah, but I think what he does say has some credibility, that we've noticed the Chinese government just acts. It doesn't really put out a statement, oh, we're do this and this is how it's gonna. They just
That's how it accomplishes all that social engineering, right? It
yeah,
doesn't have to explain itself; it just does it.
just does it. But this is gonna be something that happens over a few years, and I don't want to drag on too long. But the big question now for most people is how am I being affected? Why is my portfolio, you know, everybody Googled it this week. Why is my stock portfolio down?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because
Sorry.
so people were exposed to the certain EV stocks or certain banks, certain other institutions. Now the whole cryptocurrency thing is being added onto that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even Chinese stocks as well. Some of them, Alibaba, to mention a few. Tencent. Tencent is up, I think. I might be wrong. But yeah, it's kind of like spreading out slowly as people go on Google and kind of check out what's really happening and realize, oh, you know what? Let me prepare for Lehman Brother in advance. I've watched enough Big Short and too big to fail to kind of appreciate that I should probably sell most of what I own right now. I think that's a wrong approach.
I just want to just go back to what Joseph was saying though, like in the recent month or 2 months, I mean, China's been banning people on like how many hours you can play video games. They've banned sissy men on TV, so they've done that. They've also banned people or put regulations on people.
This is their description, not necessarily Vishal's, but that's how they.
It's sissy men. That's what they say. Yeah, they worded.
They didn't want effeminate men on television.
Yeah.
Are they talking
and
about?
they've also they've come down hard on those English teaching services that go to China. Yeah. So a lot of foreigners like to go there to teach English because
basically
a lot of money.
They're cutting down on anything Western. They really want
basically
control of their culture again.
Yeah, and there's this Bitcoin stuff, and you got to sort of ask yourself, like, are they sort of doing like putting all these crackdowns because they're worried about a credit crunch, or
I'm going to be the contrarian on this one. I love the Chinese economy.
You know what? For me, as we discussed just a bit earlier, the Chinese government has no need or penchant to put out press releases and try and PR their way into a position. They just do it. They're one of the only administrations on the planet, or actually the only administration on the planet that has a solid 100-year plan that it actually sticks to, or at least tries to align itself to over a period of time. So what's happened with China is, for me, and not that I'm a geopolitical expert, but they have been trying to bring their economy and their country into the 21st century so they can assume their position as a hegemonic power on the planet. And in doing so, they've just gone too quickly. And things have to happen relatively organically for something to be sustainable and stable.
Yeah.
But what they did is they built these monster cities. They implemented all of these infrastructure programs based solely on debt, on the hope that somehow this would jumpstart the transfer of an agrarian culture to an urban culture from a relatively low-tech centered industry to high-tech. And it's managed to stay ahead in artificial intelligence and stuff, but still they end up with these monoliths that are fucking empty. Yep. Now in 10 years, maybe 20, they will be full, right? But it's going to take that time, and China needs to ride that transition instead of forcing it.
That's true. I think like what you're saying, they're the only one who runs their economy on a plan because they know politically they're going to be the same. They're going to be the same throughout. I think right now their main thing is bringing people out of poverty as well. So they've actually fined a couple of the big guys close to, well, I shouldn't say fine, but it's basically a fine. It's $15 billion a year for Alibaba, and I think $30 billion a year for Tencent. to contribute to the economy in a productive way, mostly to the people. And China's big thing, something I learned recently, is they are focused on the unity of the people. Although the CCP is the big dog, they want to be seen as one. But if you're the one making all the shots and all the calls, you kind of end up being the poster boy for the country. And again, they just don't they don't tell people what their plan is. They just execute. And I'm gonna be on the fence here, but I prefer that to waiting around for democratic processes.
Much bureaucracy.
As far as getting things done, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Right? And the Chinese have a tremendous ability, as with the North Koreans, for social engineering.
True.
Right?
Yeah, that's the aspect that's a bit shaky now when you control what the people say and think.
Yeah.
But so,
If you guys want to hear something crazy, I just found out.
The trade-off for democracy is that you have to wait for a general amount of consensus, and sometimes that takes a while.
yeah,
Whereas with an authoritarian regime, you don't need consensus; you just need control, which means that you don't have to appeal to the people. Fortunately, if you push them too far, you're going to have to attain control using autocratic, sometimes violent methods. Now the question is, what's the trade-off? Would you rather live in a society in which you will march to the government's beat if they're pointing a gun at you, or would you rather live in a society that moves so slowly that it's basically not moving at all, but you live freely?
I think the U.S. Post Office speaks for itself.
So, like a crazy thing about China, I just learned over this weekend is the Chinese Communist Party has been running China now longer than the Soviet Communist Party ran the USSR. So China's the most successful and longest Communist Party regime.
Yep.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
But I just want it's not that I want everything that they do, obviously.
Yes, you do.
it's just
I can see the authoritarian in your eyes. Come on.
No, I think it's a background thing where back home as well, there is sort of a political system like that, but the capitalistic side still works. But then what the politicians hate is when they lose control. So, for example, Jack Ma just disappeared after he questioned the financial system there, which a lot of what he was saying was true. And then he disappeared. People thought he was dead or whatever, but he came back for like 2 seconds. The stock shot up like 10%.
Yep.
And then the CEO came out saying, no, he's just focusing on other things right now.
Re-education.
I'm like, yeah.
Sorry.
You silenced the billionaire who's going to have to leave your company.
No, you're probably not wrong there. Re-education, yeah.
Re-education. No, but I kind of think right now the whole thing will kind of taper off. They're just trying to control the narrative as usual. It's just they do it in such an extreme pace that it shocks us.
I think, everyone's been talking about bailouts, but yesterday what sort of freaked the markets was Wall Street Journal mentioned this, that China's asking local officials to prepare for possible storm, and apparently the central government or the CCP still has a limited appetite for bailing out Evergrande despite the global implications. So I think that really freaked people out. I mean,
well, yeah,
it wouldn't be good.
It's what we should have done, right? That TARP bailout should never have happened. It would have been a harder pill to swallow, and there would have been, a tremendous fallout. But in the end, it would have shaken out the economy like it should have, and we would have started anew with something better, right? So I think the Chinese government has looked at this and knows what the end result of handing out free cash to a company that just fails to do its own due diligence.
Yeah, I think so. Again, from last week, we're talking about it. Whoever touched anything that is directly intertwined with it will suffer the consequences.
UBS, BlackRock,
portfolio,
Bank, Canada.
Let's ask our lover of Austrian economics what he thinks about the Evergrande. So, TK, do you think China should bail them out?
I don't think they should bail them out. I think the
I didn't
free.
think so. I didn't think you'd say that either.
I think they should let it roll
I think they
by.
should let it die, man.
Yeah.
So if that happens, honestly, in my opinion, like the Fed would actually like that because now the Fed can say, oh, by the way, we wanted a taper, but now we have to deal with this Evergrande situation, which is dragging on the U.S. market. So secretly, I think the Fed is maybe praying that China doesn't bail them out too.
Well, I don't know about that either. It's not doing the Fed any favors by continuing this constant bailout, right? It's better for them in the long run if they were able to push this shit off their books, right?
Honestly, dude, it's keeping everything up, right? So it
Well,
is.
no, it is.
It is, yeah.
But
Yeah.
the problem is that that's not the solution.
No.
That's true. That's true. I wouldn't want to be one of the politicians in China right now, Powell, sitting there kind of waiting for this to taper out. There are probably so many conversations that they're having right now with people from 2008 and saying, okay, if this is outside, this is China's problem, but some of our institutions are exposed to it.
Hugely exposed.
And then
They have manufacturing operations in China. It's not just financial, right? And then there's also imports, not exports. So like, there's all sorts of things as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, TK, I'm sort of stumping on over you, but don't you agree?
I agree, and I think that's a big thing where they're like, okay, we're tapering 2022. That's great. That model, they probably didn't factor in a lot of the.
Nope.
But if it happens, they're gonna have to readjust immediately.
Yeah.
China probably already has its own game plan because we're directly exposed to it. So yeah, he has a lot of pressure. Let's allow him to enjoy the weekend, Paul.
Okay, there we go. I'll cut him some slack.
We have about 2 minutes left.
Oh shit.
2 minutes. Galen, you want to tell us?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Latest development in Tesla story. It would be Elon and Grimes' split. Finally, a 3-year experiment in human interaction and procreation has come to an end. If I was that kid, I would sue the living crap out of both of those people when I got of age. Because what the fuck was that all about? Anyway, Musk is wheeling back and forth on bad press regarding FSD. MIT has come out with a report just recently that it considers FSD, as badly named as it is completely unsafe. Musk has done all sorts of misdirection this week, showing a motorcycle that they're going to produce. This is like the robots. It's like, hey, everybody, we're not even close to doing what we're supposed to be doing now. But look at this. Forget what's happening. They've already had 2 incarnations of the latest FSD software, which Musk initially said would blow our minds. It didn't blow anything. The car actually had trouble on a fucking pylon course. It kept wiping into them. They do assure us now that the emergency vehicles are safe, that the car identifies flashing lights and slows down. I wish they could say the same for cement pillars. So I don't know what's going to happen with Tesla other than that grand idiot who claims he's a fucking Tesla fanboy, who's got a private company. Nobody knows what his actual worth is, but considering that he has $4.6 billion in Tesla, has probably wasted his entire fortune on a one-trick pony that it's about to go under. So, of course, he's going public now in an effort to cover his investments. Tesla is currently valued at $700. There's a little bit of a pop, which Vishal said might be attributed to a rumor that Musk may have to pay out Grimes in some sort of prenup agreement. The other thing is, and by the way, Musk also quietly pulled his last house off the market last week.
Oh.
Yeah, so the fact that he doesn't need worldly possessions is complete bullshit. The other thing is that oh Jesus, now I lost my train of thought because I went there.
Are you going to buy shares of Tesla here,
Am I going
Galen?
to buy shares of Tesla? No. Here we go. Tesla's currently worth 750 some odd bucks, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. On a good day when the winds are with you and the world is a utopian, wonderful park, the stock is worth maybe 150 bucks. Maybe. Right? It is so grossly overvalued for what it actually is. It's stunning.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
I
these
don't
guys
know
here
what's going to happen when the
on
world realizes
Barron's,
they've been had.
Barron's looked at Tesla fundamentally, saying that the stock is fundamentally overvalued, and they believe that the bottom target is around $200 per share.
Well, there you go. I still think 150, 200 will put it as the second most
Valuable
car company in the world, and it is not that. Not even fucking
Damn.
close.
On that note, I'm going to close us out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Have fun, guys. Now that we scared
Wild
the
week.
hell out of you.
Take it easy,
right.
folks.
Bye.